Hello, 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 everyone. Lisa and I are absolutely thrilled to be finally hosting our authentic personal brand and professional brand identity webinar. We've been working so hard in the background to actually put the course together. And so we want to welcome all to this discussion this morning, this afternoon for some, your evening for others. You know, this piece of content that we have put so much love to build with Lisa is targeted at senior leaders, right? Professional founders of companies, women leaders who are trying to really unlock their power of authentic identity. Lisa.
So excited to be here. I mean, yeah, Sabine, I think it's not only just reflective of what we've been doing in terms of our passion, it's from lived experience, which is just one of the, I think when people reach out and they say, like, how can we do this? I think the confusing part is there's a lot of hype out there on, how to do a brand or how to have a voice, but oddly enough, it's not authentic. And so it's like the same playbook and copycatting, like this kind of formula. And I love the fact that you and I came together and thought we didn't have that playbook for us. The one that wasn't disingenuous, the one that wasn't like copycat this, the one that is kind of choose your own destiny and your own voice. And we got to create it with this wonderful course, Authentic Identity, and what we're going to be talking about today. And clearly, we're going to showcase a lot of examples. And so I'm very excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Yay.
Yeah. And I think it is very important to add this, right? We are in the age of artificial intelligence, constant change. We've seen that, right? We have climate and we have geopolitical challenges we have to address. We have actually a lot of leaders approaching you, Lisa, and me as well, around the fact that they are transitioning, C-level executive transitioning and trying to find out their personal brand identity and find the way that they can actually really reconnect with themselves. So during the next 40 minutes, we are going to explore how to actually craft that authentic brand identity. And we have some slides for you to actually get started with some statistics as well. So actually, before going to the statistic, probably a little bit of an intro, right? I've been actually in industry now probably around 28 years. I actually worked for large insurance company, probably worked on project when I was in IBM, PwC, on over probably 100 different project Fortune 500 around cost efficiency and value creation. But at some point, one wants to redefine oneself. And around 2019, I also, like many, had a health scare, which took me out of work for 3 months. And then I had to reconsider what made me happy and how I can actually add value in this world. I think I came from math, and Lisa would say, I come from math, finance. I used to do value creation and big spreadsheets, but I rediscovered my creative side, right? And I love combining now creativity, being able to storytell, and actually really link with what it creates a very powerful brand out there. So my view is one needs to redefine and reshape, reframe oneself constantly. And my motto is about bridging the gap between technology company and corporation. So that is what I work on every single day. I build venture lab for big corporations, but I work with VCs and I work with growth ventures to actually create that alignment. Lisa.
Well, I have spent over 30 years in insurance, in many C-suite roles. You'll see this today. I am a constant learner. So across the value chain, CFO, COO, CSO, digital strategy, from public accounting to corporate to startups, I would say that I have an insatiable desire to learn, which is very interesting, especially when I was being branded and kind of confined in some of those roles. For me, Sabine, the journey was climbing to the top. And I think we all get on this treadmill of progression and promotability and all these things that we do. And by the way, it's very natural, right? Like I even catch myself when I'm coaching my kids through the journeys that they're going in stages in their life. Like, wait, am I doing the same thing to them that I did, the same treadmill that I got put on? So we all have to think about that. And I got to the top and I finally experienced that adage that the higher you climb, the faster you fall. And, in a blink of an eye, losing it all and figuring out like, how do you actually rebound from this? And it always came back to me that my intangible asset is myself. And people always say that. You always think I am something nobody can take away, but you really, really get lost in the journey, and you get lost in the corporate, not that there's anything wrong with corporate titles and corporate roles, but you become those in a way that you are not aware of until it evaporates from you. And many C-suites have told me, how did you do it? And I would say, clearly I started globetrotting the world, figuring out how to create momentum, rebuilding myself in a way that, in essence, I choose what I give my intangible asset to, Sabine. You and I talk about this a lot, right? As opposed to becoming what I do. Like, right, I choose to bring Lisa Wardlaw to whatever I'm passionate about, to whatever I do, which is a different reframing, like you just discussed as well. Like, how do you reframe? My overall focus is I dwell, to quote Emily Dickinson, in the art of the possible. How do we break the status quo in mentality, in normalization of things that we should not normalize, that we're kind of unaware of? And how do we solve major impactful problems at scale? So yeah, very excited.
Yes. And it's exciting because at the same time, I think we are going through, different paths, and we have to always reconnect with oneself. One thing I want to highlight, right, because a lot of the people we talk to actually work in corporation, in big Fortune 500 corporation within our industry. And there are a lot of big brands which have actually started to understand the power of their ambassadors, right, of the mini brands they have internally, and gradually actually are embracing to help those align their personal brand identity with the corporate brand identity. Because if it's aligned, well, the customer sees it. And if they see it, it's better for everyone in the company. One quote that comes to mind is, in the age of change, right, in the age of AI, your personal brand might be the only real differentiator left. And it is what Lisa just said right now, right? When we look at all the stuff happening around us, if we look at the fact that some jobs are going to be replaced, right? Building the right identity, your identity actually will never be replaced. You yourself is always going to be there, right, Lisa?
Yeah, I think that's so interesting, Sabine. And I think that people often think their brand might be, I'll call it style, right? It might be my style or my accent aigu. Right? They think it's that emphasis, right? But to me, the way you stand out is actually that you have something that you are deeply passionate about that transcends any specific discrete moment. So for me, it's, like in AI, everyone's like writing that hype cycle, right? For me, it's like, well, like I have a very specific belief that, Sabine, for example, our foundations aren't strong enough to carry the AI. And I'm using that just as an example because I don't participate as Lisa Wardlaw in those ups and downs of, this widget or what this thing does. I really participate in this, like, I call it the hairline fracture. Like, what are the things that I see that I don't think people are seeing? And this is just an example to me. This is just like a me thing. You see it, of course, with venturing, I assume, right? Like, there's things that you give your credentials and your capacity and your stamp of approval to, that brands, whether you work for a corporate or you're supporting them, they need your psychological connection, I call it your intangible asset, to their truth. if there's
Absolutely.
misalignment there, right? Right. And you think about through venturing as well as being a corporate employee, right?
100%. 100%. And what you said resonate because, when I look at all the corporations that are trying to work more effectively with ventures, it's about reconciling the internal operating model. At the end of the day, it's about culture, leadership, more so and transformation, right? It's about the transformation of the business rather than just the processes and the bolts we are creating to actually make this more seamless internally. One thing I think I want to dive to right now, dark side, which we actually going into, is that the landscape is changing fast. There is no doubt. And so if we want to paint a picture, and we actually, with Lisa, we went to find some statistics which are out there. Well, you find that digital transformation and artificial intelligence are reshaping the world at an unprecedented pace. And that is some statistic from McKinsey. By 2030, as much as 30% of all work hours could be automated. And between 400 million to 800 million people worldwide may need to find new jobs due to automation. That is massive, right? It's massive disruption. It makes people uncomfortable. Meanwhile, our way of working have shifted. Study shows that we are all remote workers, and that is actually a study from Microsoft. And so as a result, we're more siloed, and we spend less time connecting with others or collaborating in groups. So it's where we need to think about things slightly differently, right, Lisa?
I think these stats are so impactful. And I guess I would like to advocate, Sabine, that I think people take them the wrong way. And so, of course, this is what we're going into with authentic identity. I think people see this and they clearly job disruption, yes, but I think they think elimination or reduction or things like that. And I think that what people are missing is the other side of the slide, which is in that statistic, new jobs. We don't emphasize new jobs enough. The level of authenticity and clarity that's going to be needed to actually co-create and dynamically design those new jobs and dynamically design your role in that it's not as though people are really coming up with an inventory of job descriptions. We create it like risk management's a great example, Sabine. Risk management is no longer going to be this checking and auditing and back-end validation. It's going to be, how do you participate in understanding AI almost at the architectural, not technology, business architectural lens. So with AI, generative AI in particular, we're going to have the opportunity and need to redesign the entire way we process. Like, Sabine, I can use another example. UIs, user interfaces, apps, by definition, will no longer have the relevance they have today. So if you kind of connect it to that statistic, right? I'm not saying, by the way, UI designers won't still be relevant, please, to all of our UI designers. But the point is, we need to think about experience in a totally new way if we have agentic AI doing jobs and roles. And so I think people stop at the agentic AI is going to do this. But what they forget is there's a layer of experience that's not yet in existence. When we remove the UI and we add the agents, who's going to create that new space? And this is what I love about, all the leadership you do. In authenticity, we have to have actually very experienced people, very much people who are not afraid of creativity, who maybe haven't tapped into it before, who maybe aren't known for design because they've been managing these major kind of, I'll call it institutions and organizations. And so how does that shine through? And I think it shines through in your voice, in your narrative, in your point of views you create. So back to you on this. I really wanted to emphasize that because I think if I go to one more webinar, Sabine, where I hear the quote, AI won't replace you, but the person using AI will, I may just like say, stop that quote. That quote needs to be stricken. This is me in the status quo, Sabine, coming up large and strong. But my point is, yes, and I understood that when we first started working on AI. So to everybody who says that, I'm not criticizing you. But I think that mentality has entrapped us in the status quo mentality, thinking we think it's binary. We think it's yes or no. AI does it or the human does it. And of course, like, or a hybrid model. What we forget about is, like, take that UI example. Who's going to actually create that? Who's going to create the replacement of UIs? So back to you on this statistic. I just like think it's such a missed opportunity that there aren't more voices designing around the white space that's created, right? Like that's where I want to see the authenticity of leadership.
And what you're also highlighting, Lisa, is that we are moving in a world where emotional intelligence is going to be critical. So creativity, problem solving, design thinking, looking at the architecture of the system before thinking about the outcome, right? So there's so many opportunities, right? The forces we have talked about will actually, dilute identity within the workforce. Is why, we talk often about, I think, job displacement. It's when we are talking about this identity displacement because of artificial intelligence. But there is so many new jobs, new opportunities which are going to come up. So it means that the old way, the old playbook will not work. We need to actually get our head out of the sand, and we need to start deploying new strategies to actually build a better selves. Another part is, I think, that identity crisis you started highlighting as well, Lisa, right? 37% of 37% of people are hiding part of themselves at work, right? Because of fear of judgment. So that is going to the authenticity gap. 82% want to be seen as a person, but only 45% feel they are actually today. Employees are reevaluating their purpose. At the same time, right, we feel sometimes that we are just a number. So how do we start evaluating that and moving away from this, Lisa, this identity crisis?
I think this is so important as well, Sabine. As we think of identity crisis, what we really need to think about is we've been conditioned to be the job, be the title. And we can say it's because, we feared rejection or fear of judgment. But what it really is societal norms kind of trained us into being the job, the accomplishment, the ladder. And so I think in this identity crisis, we have to really understand and build muscle around being who we are in all roles, regardless of title. We have to bring ourselves to that role, as opposed to the role defining who we are. We get to, I call it like season, like salt and pepper. We get to make the role uniquely Sabine, uniquely Lisa. So no matter, you're right, Sabine, like I think that's the best, most simplest construct to think about it as. You bring your unique, intangible asset, which is yourself, to that role. And only you can make that outcome, that performance, that contribution what it is. So even Sabine, even if you and I both took the same role, we would definitively have different outcomes, not different ways we perform the role.
No.
Different outcomes, because we are two individually, uniquely very different people. And I think that's the difference. I think corporate wants, regardless of if Sabine or Lisa did it, the outcome would be the same. It would just maybe be done by a different style. Again, I'll go back to style. But what I'm advocating is, no, actually, the outcomes would be different because Lisa and Sabine would approach that in different ways. That doesn't mean, Sabine, your outcome would be better or worse than mine. I'm just saying that the outcome would actually be different. And I think that's a mindset shift in identity crisis. We need to understand that we individually don't just bring ourselves, but we individually drive outcomes that are different. We drive a different story, a different narrative than a peer who's equally qualified.
100%. And, we have 7 billion people on this planet nearly. And so we just need to be mindful that every one of us have slightly different angle to our individuality. And so the question we need to ask ourselves is, does my work align with who I am and what I value today, right? When people feel like a cog in the machine, company risk losing them, right? They risk losing their heart and their minds and who their true selves are. And, I would want to actually ask people who are on this webinar, if they could actually add in the chat, Lisa will look at, and I will look at the chat later and answer all your questions. Have you ever felt that you had to cover up or shrink a part of your identity at work, right? Tell us in the chat if that happened. But here is the good news, right? The identity crisis is actually an opportunity for all of us, for all leaders, to actually, as we already said with Lisa, to redefine ourselves. So please drop your comment in the chat and we'll respond to that later. So let's go into the positive part of the conversation we want to have with you today. There is an opportunity, and that opportunity is about brand identity and building your leadership advantage. Let's call it the leadership advantage. We highlighted we have an authenticity gap, and now we can actually build for leadership. And what does that mean? That means that, when you start looking at your brand, on yours, right? For better or for worse, today, everyone is a brand. And what I often say to the businesses I work with, whilst we are building venture labs, we always have a brand component to all the work we do, because the leaders of those labs, of the initiatives, have to actually attract the right founders, the right tech companies. And so to find this alignment, the authenticity of the leaders leading those initiatives is critical. Second area is, you have to look at how you differentiate within this current period we are in, which is the world of artificial intelligence. And beyond, today's AI is going to be a next big tech coming to us. So we just need to actually understand what is our unique edge. Are we using those tools every day to actually give us an advantage? And I hear a lot of leaders, trying to make sure that their teams are equipped with the right tools. Some of the stats I got actually recently, Lisa, is 42% of professional workers, like office workers, are using generative AI today at work. But that is 74% of IT workers are doing the same. And then you have probably around 80%, actually, no, I'm exaggerating, 50%. The number was 50% of all workers are using an unauthorized generative AI platform to actually give them an edge at work, which I think is good, right? We can use Gen AI even to cook. So that for me is an unauthorized, option for us on our phone. But, how do you use this to actually build your creativity to think about what you are doing differently? Performance fuel, some of the stats shows that purpose actually within our identity will boost performance in time of change. And the key thing with an authentic personal brand identity is that we can actually build trust because we are transparent. We are who we say we are on the tin. So we can build trust, credibility, and inspire others. And then the last is for sure our impact. It has always to be linked back to impact. And then trying to break down those silos. Any additional points you want to add here, Lisa, on leadership advantage?
I mean, clearly everything on here is just exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point, right? I step back and I think about it. And I think, if you kind of connect the last slide and the statistics to this, and I've been thinking for so many years, why do so many people conform to not bringing their full selves to work or to a meeting? Why do they not interject when they know the wheels are falling off the car it's not just based in fear, Sabine. It's also like a missing, I think people not only perform their jobs, and especially at like C-suite levels, we, in particular, as a class of leaders, we really do face, like extreme and quick fear of erasure. And I don't mean like role elimination. I mean, if somebody doesn't like or doesn't support, I mean, you can call it political, you can call it, all the things that we have to navigate. What I do, like Gary Hober and I, we're actually just talking at how many people had your name in any corporate environment as a C-suite. How many people have your name on a, on an air quote, like kill list? You know what I mean? Like how many people have your name up there? And so, and he used to joke and say, like, if he didn't have a lot, he wasn't doing his job. And I would say the same, but a lot of people don't have that. I would say not what's the word I want to say? Like that inherent, like, oh, well, I'm going to do it anyway. Right. Like most people are like, wait, I need to balance this. And it's kind of conditioned in this. But the thing I want to really lean in here, Sabine, is this personal conviction to bring your whole self to work, to bring your authenticity to work. Because man, this isn't saying like, I am who I am, my morals, my principles. This is like saying, don't leave that meeting saying, oh, I should have said this, but I didn't want to because of insert sentence. So I think that there's missing in who you are authentically. I think it ties to purpose and it ties to personal conviction. I'm not ever going to bring my whole self, like my wiring, myself, unless I know, and I'm going to quote my favorite lyricist, which is Taylor Swift, unless I know I can build a legacy that they can't undo. That's me, right? And so, Sabine, I think one thing that we forget in brand identity that's like, it's overlapping everything on the sheet is that when you're asking someone to bring themselves at an authentic level, you then are building something that no matter what, no one else can undo. That goes back to me saying like your outcome would be different. And I just think that in order to unlock us bringing our whole selves, we need to step out of the, I'm doing my job, I'm performing, I'm doing what's asked of me. And yes, I'm doing it to the best of my ability. I'm being strategic, I'm being dedicated, I'm being devoted. But I think you need to get into am I doing something so holistically me that no matter what, nobody A could undo it and B could not have done it as I did it. That goes into a level of personal conviction, Sabine, that is not usually I'm doing a job, even an executive role. Would you agree with that?
I would agree, definitely. And as you are speaking as well, I think what you're also saying is if you don't define your brand, others are going to define it for you. So we need to be super careful because in an era where we can use artificial intelligence, which can handle at the same time hundreds of tasks, right? Those virtual agents. Who are we becoming? And so therefore, how differentiating? And so I believe that the differentiator comes into our human qualities, our vision, our values, our voice. Those cannot be automated at all, right? So purpose and identity become the fuel of our performance. And we always need to actually remember that and refine it and cherish it all the time. One part that Lisa and I love going into is for sure, who do we admire slide. And so, we all have those amazing leaders we admire. And we have one example only here around Sarah Blakely, right? Founders and owner of Spanx. She sold Spanx, we know, but she, helped women today in a big way. A brand is about authenticity, equal brand loyalty. And she's always present for others. She's reframing and redefining failure. Often if one follows her on Instagram, she also has been, in the background, funding women initiatives and empowering others to actually really take, their power. and be who they truly believe they are. Building relatable brand and sharing failure and wins as well, and being loved by many and still being quirky at the same time. What other leaders do you think are interesting one to tap into, Lisa? Because I know you also have your views on many others.
I mean, there's so many, right? I personally, just on the Sarah Blakely, just to kind of connect to that real fast, Sabine. She actually lives in Atlanta, so I get a unique lens on her and her son, whatever. I've seen her at the basketball gym, like in a baseball cap. But, I just want to connect just for a minute on what you said. It wasn't just what she did. It was her authenticity of being raised with a failure is not anything other than growth mindset. Like every night at dinner, her dad would say, "What did you fail at today?" He didn't say, "What did you say at?" And so I think if you think authenticity, right? Sarah was the youngest self-made billionaire so far, and she brought an authenticity of, I'm not growing unless I'm failing. And we talk about that in the era of AI, and clearly there's a whole bunch of things people are nervous about, but you have to bring a failure mindset. And so I really wanted to say that not only did Sarah bring that mindset, which we're all trying to achieve, she had it so ingrained in her DNA, in her authenticity, that everything Spanx did embraced that. Not as just a culture, but as who Sarah is. And of course, she's launched another company now, like all the things. So I wanted to just emphasize that, Sabine, hard to pick just one, right? I'm a huge fan of like everyone on this sheet, but I guess I would say I really, 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 really have an obsession with Satya Nadella. I follow a lot of what he's doing as a leader, who he is authentically, how he was raised, what he focuses on. His voice really resonates with me. And not because he's Satya Nadella running, one of the largest companies in the entire world. I really focus at and he aligns a lot with some other leaders on this as well. He doesn't believe that C-suite leaders should be in the here and now, that they should be at least 3 years ahead. And me as a leader, one of the reasons I'm so authentically aligned to his brand is because I'm like, yes, exactly. All the things that I do today aren't really what I should be doing for my company. I should be we talk about all the time, Sabine, horizon planning. And the fact that he not only brings authenticity to that, but that he brings relatability to what you're going through as a C-suite, that inertia of getting pulled into the undertow, yet that perspective of your only contribution is to be thinking 1 to 3 years out, right? Like you have people that can take the day-to-day decisions. Your discipline and your mindset is being in the horizon, thinking of what comes next. I heard another senior executive say the same thing. And so the reason why I'm bringing that up at an example level, Sabine, is kind of going down and it's not just that we relate to these people as some of the biggest icons of our century. It's that there's authentic points of view that each of them have. And you may resonate, interestingly, Sabine, with something totally different with Satya, but you still resonate with him. And so I think what it is we get to know that. And I would love to see like we may resonate differently with people and we may not resonate with them. We may dislike them for certain reasons. But the point is we know them beyond their brand. So that's what I would ask people on the webinar. Are you resonating with the brand or the person?
100%. And, some of the keywords I want to highlight from what you just said, right? Many of them have become super resilient. They actually show up every time in the same way. One of some of the quotes I found is, for example, Bosama St. John says that for her, a brand is bold, fashion, bigger than life and personality. When we look at Indra Nui, right, former CEO of PepsiCo, she used a very similar sentence as mine. I'm being unapologetic for who I am. And that's the way she built and distinguished herself within PepsiCo. And, she was loved by every employee because of her authenticity. When you think about others, you mentioned Satya Nadella. I mean, one of the keywords that come to mind when I think about him is empathy. It feels like he's a very empathetic leader in his style. And, thanks to him, today Microsoft market value soared past $2 trillion and regain its industry leadership. So we need to actually remember, when you trust an individual, that helps you also be more kinder with the brand they are working with, but they are who they are first before, being the brand. Which takes us to the tools for building your brand. So there's a lot of tools out there. And so I will actually let Lisa start, because Lisa is the one who re-engineered our work with the Plum team and actually enabled us to use this tool to help every leader to start with a blank piece of paper to really understand who they are, what drives them, right, Lisa?
Yes. I mean, and first of all, just shout out, Plum is female founded. And so super, super excited. Caitlin McGregor and I started working together a while back. So I always want to give a personal shout out to people that not only that we advocate for, Sabine, but that are supporting. Caitlin saw something in the market, which was we were all being kind of codified based on our resume, based on our titles, based on our experience, and not based on who we were and what our aptitude can be. And so I just wanted to give like an underpinning of why Plum is so important to authentic identity, which is it really gets to the, from an industrial psychology perspective, no AI. I want to emphasize that, no AI. From an industrial psychology perspective, it really gets to what innately energizes you and what innately depletes you. That does not mean, just like any athlete, let's take tennis as an example to me, because I always love to talk about this with tennis. I used to play tennis in high school. My dad played tennis. That does not mean you haven't learned how to volley or how to stay in the game, and that you haven't built muscle memory around your backhand, even if you're innately not a backhand person, right? Like that does not mean that you haven't built those skills. But what it really is what energizes you. So I used to always tell my executive coaches growing up, not a volleyer. Don't drag me into the volley and make me ping pong back and forth. Like this was a corporate conceptual example. I would say I'm an ace tennis server. I want to get the spin right. Coach me on the spin. I want to get out of the game and not be drawn into the volley unless necessary. Now, clearly I need to know how to volley because I'm going to get drawn into it. And the thing I loved about Plum, so I'm going to connect this, I promise, Sabine. The thing I love about it is it will tell you, you are innately an ace. You play your game on the serve. And so what it does is it stops that. Even you and I, Sabine, when we first took it, you have been conditioned to self-categorize your strengths and your weaknesses into these corporate isms. When you take Plum, I promise you, because we've all gone through this, you're gonna be like, what? That drains me. And we all translate that as executives into, I'm not good at that. But of course I've developed the muscle memory to learn how to volley. Every executive has to know how to get on the court and volley. And we all have this reaction to it. But when you read it and you start to see the adjectives and the words it uses to describe you and your depleters, what drains you, not what you're good at, what drains you. And it's more of an indicator of, as you develop your authentic identity, you should not be doing things that consistently drain you. If you're doing 5 things in a day and all 5 of them are your depleters, think of me playing the volley and you never get to serve, you are going to burn out. You're not going to be showing up with your truest self because you're like, I got to hang in on this volley. So I give that example. How does that relate to our brand building? We start in authentic identity with the Mastermind with not going to others first, not looking at your, internal I'll call it last performance review. We start with an industrial psychological, very, 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 I'll call it scientifically proven against all other forms of evaluations that says, here's what drains me and then what energizes me. And we have some amazing, I think, exercises in the mastermind that take you into a going underneath the outcomes of that. So like, Sabine, our favorite one is, in your most depleting skill set, what surprises you that energizes you in that skill, right? And then in your most energizing skill set, what depleter did you not notice, right? So we get underneath this and unpack it. And then I'll get quick. I'm sorry, Sabine. And then I really love how it says you are. And then it uses these amazing descriptor words that we pull into authentic identity when we start to get into our curated, like, who are we? I remember texting Sabine the first time I read them, and I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't, like, forget those of you who use ChatGPT as your like therapist and your corporate guide. You're gonna have to plug in your plum descriptors of you and train your GPT to analyze you, because we all know we talk to GPT as our friend.
Yes.
But I think, right? I mean, who doesn't?
We do.
I would love to ask you on that one. Clearly, I'll go into LinkedIn creator mode, which I use. You use, Sabine. It's got so many amazing tools. Substack for how you get your point of view and your newsletter out there. I started following so many amazing entrepreneurs on Substack. Many of them I encountered on either LinkedIn or Instagram. I follow Alison McNamara, who started Mara, which is a beauty company. And actually, Sabine, you'll think this is funny, on Substack. How I discovered her is she had posted on Instagram one of her articles about falling from grace, how she had built this career in being a reporter. She'd moved up the ladder, all the things. She walked into work one day and they said, basically, you're fired. Your role is eliminated. And she lost her entire identity. And she does this deep self-reflection in Substack about rebuilding.
That's super. Those are the type of things.
And Mara, by the way, side note, it's trending on Sephora. She's launching it everywhere. Grassroots built back up. And she took that moment and turned it into that. My point is, Sabine, I didn't connect with her because of, she's got the latest beauty cream that everyone's buying on, which by the way, it is trending. I connected with her because I read her story and I read it on Substack, right? And I follow her on Substack. I'm obsessed with her as a person. I just really like who she is. She also talks about a weight loss journey. And I was like, here's this powerful executive also talking about her ups and downs with weight loss. And so my point on all that is, these tools, while they're seemingly tools, they draw you into proximity with people. And when we want to know people, Sabine, we want relatable experiences. We seek people that I'm like, I can relate to that. And we want somebody. So I follow her actually more on Substack than I do on her professional channels. I mean, clearly I follow her professionally, but I always connect it through her Substack. So I just wanted to mention that because I have become obsessed with a lot of leaders through their Substack journals, through what they publish on their blogs, which of course we also have Canva, which is a wonderful design tool, a wonderful brand, topography, style. We always forget that, and you taught me this, and Sabine, we always forget that there can also be incongruency when we're saying who we are and we're out there orating and talking, Sabine, but then we have a design that's using, I'll make a font up, Comic Sans, because I think of Comic Sans as being very, it doesn't matter if you use it, I'm not offending you, but I always thought of it as being very like school-ish, like kindergarten teacher-ish. And I'm not knocking it. If you love it, like if that's your thing, it's fine. But for me, it never resonated. And I'm like, why do I not like Comic Sans as a font? But my point is, there's a lot of congruency here. Canva is amazing. And then Notion, of course, is wonderful. I think ChatGPT will even drop things into Notion. It will use your style guide if you give it your style guide. And I want to just emphasize that, Sabine. If you are using all of the AI tools across this, you need to train, condition, and gatekeep its style and knowledge of you. And so I will constantly feed back to my GPT. Here's my brand guide. Here's, I call it like my plum summary. Here's my point of view. And I feed that. I bet you do too, Sabine. I feed that to my chat GPT.
Your summary, right, from Plum. You can download your summary, and you can actually, all the stuff we've done, you feed it in, and then it ensures that it actually follows the requirement. It just accelerates things, right? We always rescribe. I mean, it's a virtual agent, like we used to have PAs and executive EAs, right? It's an extension of us. We still have to adjust the content, right, Lisa?
And I was going to say for you, I don't know, like if you want to quote some of the statistics and engagement rates, I wanted to just quickly circle back to LinkedIn to Sabine. I don't know about you all, but anybody that's in marketing that's listening to this, and anybody that's a person that doesn't understand or interact with your marketing people, corporate pages do not get engagement. Even if you have massive followings, look at Microsoft, look at any of the big corporate pages. They do not get engagement.
Because they don't respond. They don't respond.
Right. So what people do is they follow the people. They follow the voice. They follow the narrative. And why do things to being like selfies get more traction on LinkedIn than maybe I'll call it a corporate advertiser, like, hey, Sabine, post this on your LinkedIn.
It was dogs, actually, Lisa. I thought it was video of dogs, but tell us why.
Yeah, video of dogs does as well. But selfies, I'll just use that one because, I was just talking to somebody literally yesterday, and they're like, my LinkedIn never gets much traction. Why did this post go viral? So they called me to ask me about it. I'm like, well, look at your picture. And they're like, what? I'm like, you look beautiful and engaged, but you also look a little raw. I could tell you were taking a flight. I could tell that you were, you were not on stage. You were your truest self. And psychologically, even though you were posting an amazing picture, we saw that you were human. We saw that you were tired. We saw that you were traveling, and people were cheering you on. Sabine says selfies resonate because they are not scripted. Yeah. They are not prescribed. Sabine, you and I have one where we're both like doing a silly face. And, it was like back at an InsurTech Insights conference like 2 or 3 years ago. And we were like, I can't even believe we took this picture. Right? And we posted it, and it had like a viral reaction as well. Because people love a lens into something of you that is authentic, that's true. And again, proximity. There's nothing more close to someone than seeing their unfiltered self.
Absolutely.
And that's what selfies in my mind do. And that's why I think psychologically they trend well on LinkedIn.
And during our course, we explain some of the strategies that are recommended by LinkedIn as well, right? To actually build a profile and actually be successful with that platform. But what we are trying to say is, just a few of the tools that we would use, right, if we were going to build a personal brand identity. But also, I think, as Lisa said, there are some stats here, right? And, some individual brands, some writers, generate over $40 million a year just on Substract. LinkedIn, if you have a proper LinkedIn profile, a great picture, also a background. Often people don't put a background on LinkedIn, right? With a quote for yourself. You can actually activate your followers, right? And your engagement.
I wanted to just say one thing on background. This is just me like giving you a little free advice here. Do not, in my opinion, put your corporate logo on your background for 2 reasons. One is it's disrupting that psychological authenticity, right? They're seeing it as an advertisement. And again, startup founders, like maybe you can ignore me because your identity is creating your startup. But for corporates, and then the other is, and I hate to say this, when you leave, a lot of people forget to change their backgrounds. And so they're going on a new role, and they've got this little other background in there. So I just say own your background. And Sabine, I'm just saying that as a I just saw this week, so it's top of mind to me. own your background. Your background should be authentically you as well, right? Like, and I'm not saying you can't have a corporate something on there, but again, I think that people resonate with you and they want to know that when you're talking and speaking on LinkedIn, you're not doing it at the request of somebody else, that you're doing it for yourself, right? Like, Sabine, like,
the brand doesn't
really important.
You define yourself, right? So that I think are very, very important to remember. But all this, is within the course, and we help really understand some of the tools which are there, which allows that automation. And so when we start diving in how we do this, right, there are so many steps in the framework, but we actually sharing with you 5-step action plan you guys could actually get started with. The first is about discovering yourself, right? Creating that strength muscle, which is based on your plan profile to really understand your drivers. In mind, for example, I have your authoritative and persuasive. Those are two terms which are based on my profile. So think about leveraging the right tools to actually really understand your top 3 core strengths. Then it's about defining and crafting your narrative. And actually, that is what the course does. It takes you on a journey to start building those building blocks so that you have the right conclusion. And then you have that plan you can actually probably even feed on ChatGPT, but help you really refine who you truly are. What is your North Star? What is your purpose on this planet? Then, the tools we just shared with you, it's about building the right capabilities, the resources to help you accelerate how you go and get it done, right? So we go into the design stage. Maybe you may want to set up your own website. A lot of our friends, executives, also they have their own website page where they actually either write like Substrat, but also talk about who they are beyond the corporate lens of themselves. And then it's about activation. I say activation and amplification in my world, because I do believe that anything we do need to be amplified, with that external lens. And if we actually do that on a regular basis, it's a little bit like having a bit of case study going on. It allows you to actually help connect with your audience and for your audience to find you. It's a little bit like manifesting. It's like, having that vision board activated on a daily basis. And then it's about growing the network. Anything you want to add to that 5-step action plan, Lisa?
I was just going to ask you, I think a lot of times people think they can take one of those 5 steps or they can do them out of order. I was just going to ask you what your thoughts are on that.
Well, for me, I could not have started it because, you evolve all the time. But I think taking that plan profile really got me to now. And, you take it and you unpack it, you revise it. And actually, after 1 year, I took again my plan profile just to see whether things would change. Actually didn't change. Just my priority, my core competencies just shifted because I had to focus, let's say, on a different type of core competency at that point in time. So what I've seen is the core competency shifted. However, what drove me and what drained me stayed the same. And as a result, then I could actually go into refining my crafting, looking at projects like this we are doing together, really looking at, what would be relevant design between your design and my design, which comes together to actually build this. So you have to think about a lot of ingredients, but you have to start with the discovery, I think.
I love that. And no, I wouldn't add anything other than just, it takes work, but we're here to help you. Again, we've created what didn't exist for us that we had to kind of, MacGyver our way through. We've created a very intuitive, easy activation process.
Absolutely. And as Lisa said, we are here to support you. So whilst we have self-serve courses, what I believe is, building the acceleration muscle. So we'll get cohorts to come together and support them on a yearly basis. So when you start looking at your LinkedIn, think about some of these, little outcomes to think about when you want to go viral. Think about your hook. The platform loves short hook, which actually connects with what people want to see on the platform. Also think about the hashtag. People think hashtags are random. They are not random. So the platform now today works on keywords. So the way you write naturally, but then a few hashtags, I tend to limit mine to 3 maximum. I'm saying, okay, I'm talking to insurtech people today, or I'm talking to fintech people today. Oh, today it's about authentic identity. Or it might be around venture client model, which is another topic I talk about. So think about your hashtag strategically as well. Maybe use influencer. I think building a community is very important. So Lisa and I follow each other. We actually support one another. I think in our industry, we need to do that better. I know a lot of people working for corporation feel uncomfortable engaging on content of within the platform, but it can be something as short as, really like what you talked about. This is my experience with that, and can be really short, but engagement is critical. And then time is key. For example, I sit in Europe, and so my engagement needs to be between 10 o'clock and probably 12 o'clock, which is the time slot where people go and have their coffee and jump onto LinkedIn, or after 4:30. So really understanding those times is critical for that platform. But each platform are different, right? A piece of content, for example, on LinkedIn can last for 42, 72 hours. On a platform like X, it will last for 15 to 30 minutes. So really understanding the algorithm becomes very important. And then, what do I mean by boosting engagement? Is supporting your network, right? Tapping on people who are renowned within the topic you're interested in, and then boosting engagement is actually really replying and engaging. And usually 20 per day is enough. It doesn't need to be 100. And then I've repeated the hashtag strategy because, for example, this we have put together with Lisa here as part of this webinar is all linked to authentic identity, as this is an hashtag we are going to hone. But, for the project, there will be others, like, for example, Lisa's podcast or my podcast, which is called Scouting for Growth. Anything I've missed here, Lisa?
No, other than, and we talk about this in the actual course, I would just say most people are naive and unaware of how the algorithm itself works. So, for example, Sabine, if I were to tag you and 20 other people in my post itself, and you choose not to engage with me, that's going to drain and drag my performance 30% per person that doesn't engage with you. So my point is, I think people hear things like tag, but it's not just tag. It's like you have to actually know what the algorithm punishes, what the algorithm rewards, and you don't need to be a LinkedIn PhD in LinkedIn to know it, but you do need to learn. At least in our there's a lot of people I follow that actually spend their whole time analyzing the algorithm, but it's not. I guess I would just say is like you need to learn. Don't approach it as like, well, I'm just gonna go tag a whole bunch of people, and don't tag people that don't want to engage with you either. So I guess, Sabine, I just wanted to say that there is an art as well as science to this, and clearly in the masterclass you go through it in just amazing depth.
Absolutely. And because we've learned, the key thing is we apply what we preach, and we learn. We test and learn all the time, and the algorithm change every year as well. So we have to test and learn and apply new strategy on a yearly basis.
For sure.
And so, final thoughts, right? Hopefully you will get this into the notes of this discussion and webinar. We have put together an authentic identity course. It's available. It took us some time to put it together because we put some videos, and we really wanted those to be edited properly. So it took a little bit of time, but it is out and you can actually access it here. We want to make sure you can get access to live coaching, hand-on activities that will be built by Lisa and I, exclusive tools. We have shared a few that we use on a regular basis, but there are many others. And actually, it's very dependent on the individual, what the individual wants to do with their personal identity and authority and how they want to build that. We have great results, right? We have 100 people, probably 80% women, who have actually attended our authentic identity masterminds in 2024 and toward the end of 2023. So we actually tested this with a lot of our network to actually refine and make sure we actually coached these practices at the right level. And our goal with Lisa would be to build this authentic identity, I would say, accelerator. And we are going to plan to start having some calls during the summer to actually get our first cohort, maybe 25, 30 of you, to really go into a bit of mini accelerator. It's just a few weeks. It doesn't take more than 6 calls to get you through that so that you understand the levers of it all. And hopefully at the end, you will get your own brand book. Our goal is to inspire our community, to inspire others, to actually ignite the fact that we may have a lot of technology, we are in a changing and uncertain world, but actually you create certainty by really working on that identity. Anything else I missed, Lisa?
I mean, I'm so excited about the momentum, and we always wanted to get it to this point where it would be accessible to all. And so I think that would be really the thing I would say is, like, honestly, there's a lot of hype around things like this. And I would say, just like why you resonate with people, do it from people who have done it before. Do it from people that you trust and aspire to understand, well, how did you do it? And then do it with tools and things that are actually going to accelerate you, because no executive gets more fatigued than starting this, long journey in, I call, like, no enablement or tool oriented way. Most executives are quick, they're fast, they want results, and so I always think about it like that, Sabine. How do I get results and not do the same thing over and over and over again and create traction? And so for me, the gift of this course is that we are taking all of the things we've spent all that muscle building, and we're saying, okay, we want to help people stay the course. So we created this in a way that does not create that fall off and fall back on. We've really created it to be outcome immediate oriented. So very excited. Yay.
Very excited. So thank you so much. We look forward to speaking with you. Make sure to continue the engagement in the chat or DM Lisa or I. If you have any question, we are here to support you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.